The alien market was loud, filled with smoke, shouts, and strange smells. Creatures from many planets walked by, looking for tools, food, and slaves. In one dark corner of the market, chained to a wooden post, sat a young alien girl. Her skin was pale, her clothes dirty, her eyes filled with pain and silence. No one stopped to look at her, not even once. To them, she was nothing, just another unwanted slave. Even worse, she was not captured or stolen. She was sold by her own family. For the price of a broken tool, her name. No one cared to ask, her parents. Already gone, laughing with the few coins they got. The girl didn't cry anymore. She had learned that tears changed nothing. "Look at this one," a vendor said, kicking dust near her face. "Too small too. Work too weak to fight, but maybe someone wants a pet." The vendor laughed, and others did too. The girl just looked down, like she wasn't even there, and then something strange happened. A shadow fell over her, different from the others. Quiet, still, strong. She looked up, just a little, afraid. A human stood there, tall and silent. He wasn't like the others. He wasn't laughing. He was looking at her. Really looking. He had brown eyes, kind but full of sadness. His clothes were simple, dusty, like he'd been traveling for days. He didn't speak. He just knelt down, lowering himself to her level for a moment. The girl thought he might hit her, like others did, but instead, he took out a small bottle of water, opened the cap, and gently held it out to her lips. She stared, unsure. Was it a trick? Would he pull it away and laugh like the others? But the water didn't move, so she slowly leaned forward and drank. Not like a slave, not like an animal, but like a living being who mattered. The human stood up, turned to the vendor, and asked one simple question: how much? The vendor laughed. For her. Take her for 1 coin. She's useless. The human didn't laugh. He reached into his pocket and placed a silver coin on the table. A small one, a full day's wage. The vendor's eyes widened. You could have taken her for less. The vendor said, confused, I didn't ask for less. The human replied calmly. He turned back to the girl, unchained her wrists gently. Her arms dropped, weak from being tied too long. He lifted her up slowly, as if she were made of glass. The girl didn't fight, didn't speak. She was too tired, too confused. He carried her through the market. Everyone stared. Whispers followed him. Why would a human buy that? What's he going to do with her? She's broken. She's trash. The human ignored them. He didn't care what they said. He reached his ship, a small but clean freighter. The door opened, and he stepped inside with her still in his arms. He laid her gently on a soft blanket, gave her clean clothes. He didn't touch her again. He just sat across the room and spoke. You're safe now, he said. No one will hurt you here. She didn't answer. She just watched him with tired eyes. He stood up, walked to the other side of the room, and said quietly, You can sleep. I'll be here if you need anything. She waited until he turned away. Then, for the first time in days, she whispered 2 words, barely louder than a breath. Thank you. The human didn't turn around, but he smiled. He had seen something in her no one else did. Not a slave, not a pet, not trash. But someone worth saving. Everyone at the market had laughed when the human took her, they said. He was stupid, that she would die in a day, that he had wasted his coin. Some even whispered cruel things. Maybe he bought her for dark reasons, but they didn't know the truth. He didn't buy her to hurt her or use her. He didn't see her as property. He saw her as a person. Inside the small ship, everything was quiet. The girl sat on a soft bed, her eyes scanning every corner. She had never seen a room like this, clean, warm, safe, no chains, no yelling. Just the gentle hum of the ship and the sound of his boots as he walked away. She was still afraid, even after the water, the blanket, and his soft words. Her body didn't know how to relax. Her mind kept telling her, this is a trick. There will be pain. There is always pain. He came back with a steaming bowl of food, something that smelled good. He placed it in front of her and sat far away. I don't know what your species eats, he said softly, so I made something simple. He didn't tell her to eat. He didn't touch her. He just waited. She picked up the spoon like she was holding a weapon. Her hands shook, but she tasted it. Her eyes widened. Slightly it was warm. It was soft. It was real food. She ate slowly. Not like a starving beast, but carefully. The human watched quietly. Not with hunger, not with pride, but with something strange kindness. Later that night, she didn't sleep. She sat on the bed, knees hugged to her chest. Watching him from across the room, he had fallen asleep in the pilot's chair. Arms crossed, he wasn't even guarding her. He had left the ship's doors unlocked. She could escape if she wanted, but she didn't. The next morning, she woke up to the smell of fresh tea. He handed her a small cup. This time, she took it without fear. Do you have a name? He asked gently. She shook her head slowly. Or maybe she did have one, but didn't want to say it. All right, he said, with a soft smile. Then I'll wait until you're ready. She stared at him for a long time, and then whispered, Why? Are you doing this? He didn't answer right away. He looked at the stars outside the window. I once had a daughter, he said quietly. She's gone now. But I remember how small she was. He glanced back at the girl. No one should be treated like nothing. Silence filled the ship. The girl looked down. Gripping the cup tighter, her hands still had scars from the cuffs. Her back still ached from the beatings, but her heart. Something strange was happening there for the first time in her life. Someone saw her, not her bloodline, not her weakness, not her price, just her, later that day. They stopped at a quiet station to refuel. The human stepped out while she stayed. Inside, she watched from the window as others looked at him. They smiled, nodded, respected him. He wasn't rich, not powerful, but people liked him, and for some reason, that made her feel safe. But then she heard voices outside. A group of aliens walked past the ship and pointed. Is that the girl he bought from the trash market? She's still alive. Maybe she's useful after all. She must be doing something for him, right? They sneered. Their laughs were sharp. The girl stepped back from the window. Heart pounding. She was just a joke to them. Even now, even after the human saved her, she was still nothing in their eyes. When the human returned, he saw her curled up in a corner, shaking. He didn't ask why. He sat down beside her, not too close, and said, Out there, they only see what they want to see. He looked into her tired eyes. But in here, I see what's real. She looked at him for a long time, then said in a quiet voice, I don't know who I am anymore. He nodded. Then let's find out. The ship lifted off again, carrying a quiet girl with haunted eyes, and a man who had already decided he would not give up on her, no matter what she had been. He knew what she could become. She had been sold for nothing, but to him, she was priceless. The ship floated through deep space, silent and calm. Inside, the girl sat near the window, watching stars pass like falling snow. Her arms still carried the marks of chains. But now she wore clean clothes and soft slippers. Her body was healing. Slowly, but inside, something stronger was waking up. The human, his name was Reed, gave her space. He never forced her to speak. He just brought her food, showed her simple things, and talked gently. But he noticed something strange. She watched everything. When he repaired wires, she watched his hands closely. When he opened a screen, she followed every symbol with her eyes. When he gave her an old book to keep her busy, she finished it in one day and then asked for another. Not in words, just with a look. One evening, Reed was working on the ship's control panel. Something was broken again. Old rust bucket, he muttered. Tapping the blinking red screen, the system language wasn't in human code. It was alien tech, complicated and rare. He sighed and leaned back, frustrated. That's going to take hours. Behind him, a quiet voice whispered, "May I try?" Reed turned in surprise. The girl stood near the control panel, eyes glowing faintly from the screen's light. "You know this?" he asked gently. She nodded once, stepping forward. Her fingers moved across the keys faster than he thought possible. She wasn't guessing. She knew. The red screen blinked green. The lights flickered back to normal. Systems reset. The hum of the ship grew stronger. Reed stared, shocked. "You? How did you do that?" She didn't smile. She just looked at him and said, "I used to watch the techs back home. They never thought I was watching." Reed leaned against the wall, shaking his head in amazement. "You just did in 2 minutes what I couldn't do in 2 hours." She looked down shyly. "I'm sorry if I touched without permission." He laughed gently. No, don't be sorry. That was incredible." He knelt to her eye level. "You're not just smart, you're brilliant." She didn't know how to respond. No one had ever said that to her. She had been told she was a burden, a waste, a girl with no value. But now, someone had seen her differently. Again, from that day, Reed gave her small tasks. First, just to keep her busy. Then, to test her memory, her problem-solving, her logic. She passed every test with ease. Soon, she began repairing systems before he even noticed they were broken. She spoke more too softly, but with purpose. Her voice had a rhythm to it, like music slowly returning after silence. One day, Reed showed her a map of ancient alien ruins. "I've never been able to read these symbols," he said. She looked at the map for 2 minutes, then quietly explained every mark, every curve, every number. Reed dropped his mug in shock. "By the stars. You've just translated ancient tech without a scanner." She smiled for the first time, just a little. Word spread quietly in small stations and repair docks. "There's a human with a strange little assistant. She fixes old systems with her mind." Is she a machine? A clone? A spy? No one knew, but people were curious. Some asked Reed if he would sell her. One offered him 5 times what he paid. Reed's face turned cold. "She's not for sale," he said firmly. "She's not property." That night, the girl sat beside Reed while he read an old space journal. She leaned against the wall, holding a small glowing crystal he had given her. "Do you think I was born broken?" she asked suddenly. Reed looked up, surprised. "No," he said slowly. "I think the people around you were too blind to see who you really were." She was quiet. Then she whispered, "Maybe I wasn't trash. Maybe I was just in the wrong hands." Reed nodded. "And now, you're in the right ones." That night, she dreamed of stars not cages, of light not darkness. She wasn't just healing, she was becoming. Not a slave, not a lost girl, but a mind the galaxy had ignored. And now, they would all see what Reed already knew. She was never broken, only hidden. The girl was not the same anymore. Weeks had passed, and she no longer walked with her head down. She still wore simple clothes, still ate quietly, still sat in corners, but her eyes had changed. They no longer looked empty. Now, they held light. Now, they held choice. Reed noticed it first. She began asking questions, not just about the ship, but about the stars. What's beyond this sector? Why do humans name constellations? Why does pain feel smaller when someone listens? Reed answered each one with patience, like a teacher who truly loved to teach. She wasn't just learning, she was growing, but trouble was never far, especially for those who dared to rise above what others decided for them. It started on a trading moon called Garin 6. Reed had docked there for fuel and supplies. The girl stayed inside the ship, as usual, but from the windows. She watched the busy world outside. Something was wrong, though. Reed had been gone too long. And then she heard it. Voices outside. Voices she remembered in her bones. Her heart dropped. Her hands trembled. She peeked through the ship's door. A tall alien male stood with 2 guards, yelling at a port officer, "I'm telling you. My daughter is inside that ship. She was taken by that human thief." The girl's skin went cold. It was him, her father, the same man who had sold her for 1 silver coin. The same man who called her useless, a curse less than nothing. Now, he wanted her back. Reed returned just minutes later, surprised to see her standing outside the ship. She ran to him and clung to his arm, shaking, before he could ask what was wrong. The guard stepped forward. "You have something that belongs to us," her father said, voice cold. "This girl is our blood, and we want her returned." Reed didn't raise his voice. He simply stepped between them and the girl. "She doesn't belong to anyone," he said calmly. "She's not a thing to own. She's our daughter." The alien shouted, "And you sold her like a piece of broken junk." Reed snapped back. "You lost the right to call her daughter the day you put a chain on her neck." People were watching now, merchants, guards, strangers. Everyone paused to see what would happen next. The girl gripped Reed's coat tightly. Her father stepped forward, smirking. "You think this human loves you?" He hissed at her. "He's using you, girl, the same way anyone would. Come back, and you'll have food. Shelter your place in our house. I'd rather sleep in the cold," she said, her voice quiet but steady. Everyone turned to her. It was the first time she had spoken in front of so many. Her father blinked, confused. She stepped beside Reed, trembling but holding her chin high. "You only want me now because you heard I fixed the ship, because people are talking. You didn't want me when I was hungry, dirty, afraid. You only want my value, not me. You are our blood," he started again. "I don't care," she said. Louder this time. "You sold me. You left me to die in a cage. I'm not your daughter anymore." Gasps ran through the crowd. Even the guards looked unsure now. Reed placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. She was shaking, but she didn't hide. She stood in front of the galaxy and made her choice. Her father stepped back, anger rising in his face. "You'll regret this," he spat. "You'll be alone when he's done with you." "No," she said softly, looking up at Reed. "I was alone before now. I'm finally free." The guards turned away and her father followed, but he didn't look victorious. He looked small because he knew he had lost something priceless. And it was his fault, as the crowd slowly went back to their business. Reed and the girl returned to the ship. Inside, she collapsed into a seat. Breathing hard, Reed knelt beside her. "Eyes kind, you didn't have to speak. Not if you weren't ready." She looked at him, eyes wet but bright. "I needed to, for the first time. I said what I wanted, not what someone else told me." Reed nodded. "That's what freedom sounds like." She smiled through her tears. And for the first time, she felt like someone with a voice. Not just a rescued girl, but a person who could choose her future. The stars outside were calm, but trouble was close. Reed's ship had been acting strange since they left Garin 6. The engines hummed too loud, the lights flickered, and strange symbols flashed on the control screen. Reed tried to hide it from the girl, not wanting her to worry, but she noticed, she always noticed, "Is something wrong with the ship?" She asked one night. Reed smiled and shrugged. "Just old tech being stubborn. Nothing you need to worry about." But she knew he was lying, gently, kindly, but lying. She waited until he fell asleep in the pilot chair. Then she stood and walked toward the control panel. The screen was covered in alien code symbols from a lost civilization. Reed had once told her the ship was built using hybrid parts, human bones. Alien brain, very few could understand its systems. Even fewer could repair them. but she wasn't. Like others, she didn't just see machines, she felt them. She didn't learn code like a student. She understood it like language in her blood. She touched the screen softly. It flickered red, blue, green, and then flashed yellow, error signs, hidden systems, locked protocols. She closed her eyes and let her fingers move. Her mind danced with the machine. It was broken, but not beyond repair. It was confused. She whispered to it. Not with words, but with logic. She found the flaw, rewrote the loop, reconnected dead circuits. The ship pulsed under her hands, like it was breathing again. Reed woke to silence, then a soft chime. The lights were steady. The engine hum was clean. He blinked in confusion, stood up, and stared at the console. The screen now glowed calm and green. System reset complete. It read, underneath it, a quiet signature, fixed. He turned and saw her sitting on the floor, tired but smiling. You fixed the core? He asked in disbelief. She nodded. I think I heard what it wanted. Reed laughed, shook his head, and knelt beside her. No one's ever done that, not even trained engineers. She shrugged gently. I just listened, that's all. But it wasn't just anything. What she had done wasn't normal, it was genius. The ship now flew smoother than ever before. They reached the next starport in half the time. At that port, something amazing happened. Reed needed to register his ship for a new route. When the mechanics saw his engine performance, they stared at the readings in shock. What model upgrade is this? One asked. Reed replied, no upgrade, just a repair. Who did it? The mechanic asked. Reed turned and smiled. She did, pointing to the girl. The mechanics laughed at first. She's just a kid, one said. She's a miracle, Reed replied. They didn't believe him until she stepped forward. The mechanics, still doubtful, asked her to look at one of their old damaged drones. She examined it for 10 minutes, then made a few adjustments with a small tool. The drone powered up, hovered perfectly. The entire shop went silent. Even the senior technician blinked like he had seen magic. You just made it work, he whispered. No one's been able to fix that thing for years. News spread quickly. In less than a day, the port officers, tech dealers, and even local captains came to see the girl who spoke to machines. They offered credits, work, even education contracts. They said she could make millions in a year. One alien lord offered Reed a starcruiser in exchange for her loyalty. But Reed said no. Every time, he never spoke for her. He only looked at her and said, it's your choice. She said no too. Every time, not because she didn't want a future, but because she wasn't ready to sell her freedom, not ever. Again, one night, while watching the stars together, she asked Reed, why do they only want me now when I'm useful? Reed looked at her, serious but gentle, because that's how most of the galaxy works. He said, but it's not how you have to work. She nodded slowly, thinking, then said, I want to help you fix ships, not for coins, not for contracts, just because. It feels good? Reed smiled. Then that's what we'll do. And so they flew from planet to planet, fixing what others gave up on. Helping people not for power, but for purpose. She became known as the Whisperer of Machines. But to Reed, she was just her, the girl he found in chains, now flying free. They called her the Whisperer of Machines. Some said she was parte. Others believed she was gifted by ancient gods. Rumors traveled faster than light. A human travels with a girl who can fix anything. She can rewire star cruisers with her hands. She speaks to systems no one understands. And when the wrong people heard those whispers, trouble followed. It began on Station Veraxis 12. Reed had stopped there to repair the ship's outer panels and get new supplies. The girl walked beside him now, not hiding, not afraid. She wore a clean tunic, soft boots, and a tool pouch. At her side, people looked at her with respect, even wonder. But not everyone smiled. A man in golden armor stood in the crowd. He watched her, unmoving, like a hawk watching prey. And then he stepped forward. "I bring a message from the Imperial Science Guild," he said. "The High Directorate would like to speak with the girl." Reed stepped in front of her. "She's not interested," but the man ignored him. Looking directly at her, "They've heard of your gift," he said. "They offer a place among the stars. A lab of your own, technology beyond your dreams. You won't be a helper, you'll be a leader. Your name will be known across the galaxy." The girl looked at Reed. Then at the man. "I didn't ask to be known," she said quietly. "I just want to fix what's broken." The man smiled politely. "Then help fix the galaxy." He handed her a glowing data crystal. "Review our offer. The Empire values minds like yours. The human can't give you what we can." And with that, the man turned and walked away, leaving behind silence and pressure. That night, the girl sat quietly in the ship. Reed pretended not to watch her, but his eyes flicked toward the crystal on the table. It blinked softly like a heartbeat. "Like a trap wrapped in gold. You can go," he said softly. Finally, her head turned sharply. "I mean it," he said, his voice steady but full of weight. "I didn't save you to keep you. You're free if you want to go with them." "I won't stop you." She didn't answer right away. She looked at her hands, at the small scars from her past, then at her tools, her data pads, the worn blanket Reed gave her weeks ago. So much had changed, but one thing stayed the same: his kindness. The next day, a golden shuttle arrived from the Empire. Officers in silver uniforms stepped out with smiling faces. "We're honored you've accepted our offer," one said. But the girl didn't come forward. Only Reed stood there, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Then she appeared at the top of the ramp, wearing her usual tunic, hair tied back. She held the crystal in her hand. "I read your offer," she said calmly. "It was very impressive." The officer smiled wider. "But I'm not going," she finished, and dropped the crystal. It hit the ground and shattered. The smiles vanished. One officer stepped forward. "You're making a mistake." She shook her head. "No," she said. "You think I'm a tool, a mind, a thing to control, but I'm not a system to fix or own. I'm a person. And I already have a place right here." She nodded toward Reed, "where someone saw my worth before the galaxy did." The officers looked at Reed with cold eyes. "Do you know what you've cost her?" One said. Reed smiled. "Only what?" She was never meant to lose. The officers left, silent and angry. The shuttle vanished into the stars, but the ship, their ship, felt warmer than ever before. Inside, she sat beside Reed. He said nothing, just handed her a warm drink. After a while, she whispered, "I was scared I'd disappoint you if I said no." Reed looked at her and shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. You made your own choice. That's what freedom looks like." She leaned against his shoulder, not like a child, not like a servant, but like a friend. That night, while the ship floated between galaxies, she looked out at the stars and smiled. She could have had power, status, fame, but she chose something more rare: belonging. The stars outside were calm, but inside the ship, warning lights blinked red. Reed stood at the control panel, hands flying across switches. "We have a situation," he muttered. The girl came running in from the back, tool pouch at her side. "What happened?" "Distress call," Reed said, pointing to the flickering screen. "A colony on Volter 3. Their power grid is collapsing. Emergency systems offline. Children trapped underground, no way to contact the main network." She looked at the screen, alien language mixed with raw panic. "They have less than an hour," she whispered. The planet was far. And worse, its system was old, forgotten. No one else had answered the call. "They're alone," Reed said, "but we're not fast enough to get there in time." She stared at the data, eyes narrowing, then suddenly stood tall. "Maybe not fast enough by engine." she said, but I can override the jump relay. Reed looked at her. You? Mean the old prototype warp system? She nodded. The one with 10 warning signs. Yes. He raised an eyebrow. It could tear the ship apart. She smiled. Just a little. Only if I do it wrong. They both got to work, her hands flying over wires, his voice reading coordinates. The ship groaned as energy surged through unused channels. The lights flickered, screens blinked. The engine roared like a beast waking from a deep sleep. Ready? Reed asked, gripping the chair. She nodded. Let's save them. And with a flash of blue light, they vanished into space. The ship landed hard on Voltur 3. Smoke poured from the engines. Sparks flew from the hull, but they were alivened. On time, they stepped outside into chaos. The air was thick with dust. Fires burned across the fields, and alarms echoed in the distance. An alien woman ran toward them, crying, "Please, my children. They're trapped under the school. Doors won't open." The girl ran without thinking. Reed followed. They reached the broken shelter doors, jammed shut by a system failure. She touched the panel, and her eyes widened. This tech. It's ancient, fused with forgotten language. Reed handed her. A scanner. Can you unlock it? She didn't answer. She was already working. Her fingers danced, her mind racing. She spoke softly to the panel. Come on, listen to me. I know you're tired. But not today. Sparks flew. The panel lit up then. Click. The doors opened, and a dozen small figures spilled out dusty. Coughing alive, the alien mother screamed with joy and hugged her children. Others began cheering. You saved them. She saved our children. She's incredible. The girl stepped back, breathing hard, her face covered in dirt, her hands shaking, but her eyes. They glowed, not from power, but from purpose. A leader from the colony came forward. You've saved our entire settlement, he said. Without you, we would have lost everything. He looked at Reed, then back at her. Who is she? Reed smiled and said nothing. He just looked at her with quiet pride. And she finally spoke. I was once sold for a single coin, she said, her voice steady. I was thrown away, called useless, forgotten. She looked around at the crowd, but someone believed in me, and now I believe in myself. There was silence, then applause, not the kind given to heroes in armor, but the kind given to someone earned. Later, back on the ship, the girl sat quietly, staring at the stars. Reed walked in and placed a small metal box beside her. She opened its side, whilst a badge, old and a little scratched. What's this? She asked. It belonged to my daughter. Reed said softly. She wanted to be a systems officer one day. Smart, strong. Like you. The girl looked at the badge. Then at Reed. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me when no one else did. Reed smiled. No, he said. Thank you. For proving everyone else wrong. And with that, the ship took off once more. Not with noise or drama, but with quiet purpose, carrying a girl once left behind, now known across the stars, not as a slave, not as a tool, but as a legend.